She stopped crying a long time ago, not because it didn't hurt, but because even her tears had learned they weren't safe. Every day he came home, and every day she braced for the blows, until the day something changed, not because the pain stopped, but because someone else couldn't stand it anymore, someone nobody expected. A broken old bull left to rot behind the barn. What happened that night would shake the silence of that ranch forever. And if you've ever believed that real courage sometimes comes from the most forgotten places, then this story is going to stay with you. The slap echoed through the old wooden house like a gunshot. Marta didn't scream. She stumbled, hit the counter behind her, and slid down to the floor. A cup shattered near her feet. Her cheek stung, but she didn't lift a hand to it. She'd learned it only made things worse. Across the yard, Granite raised his head. The bull didn't move often. Most days he looked more dead than alive. His legs were stiff, his eyes dim, but tonight something in him shifted. Inside the house, Ethan paced like a caged animal, sweating, twitching, eyes wild with need. "Where is it?" he shouted. "Don't lie to me, Mum!" Marta tried to speak, but her voice was a whisper. "Ethan, please!" He kicked a chair out of the way. "You're feeding that worthless beast while I starve in here. That bull means more to you than your own son." Granite let out a low snort. It was barely audible over the storm brewing inside the house. Ethan didn't hear it, but Marta did. She looked toward the back window, and for a moment her swollen face softened. Her hand trembled as she touched the floor, trying to rise. "You were a good boy once," she whispered. "You used to ride him with your father." Ethan wasn't listening. His mind was already somewhere darker, and outside, Granite stood still as stone, watching, waiting. If you believe in second chances, this story is for you. Granite wasn't always like this. Years ago, he was the pride of the ranch, broad, strong, admired. James Green, Marta's late husband, used to call him the heartbeat of the land. Granite pulled wagons, led parades in town, and stood proudly beside James in every photo that hung on their living room wall. But time has no mercy, not on animals, and certainly not on memories. When James died, everything began to wither. Ethan had already started drifting, skipping school, lying. Then came the pills, then the shouting, and Granite. Granite was just left behind. The ranch fell into disrepair, the crops dried out, the fences leaned like tired old men. No one came to visit anymore. The only sound that remained was the creak of old wood and the wind through the fields. People said Marta should put the bull down. "He's just another mouth to feed," the neighbors whispered. "He can't even stand straight." But Marta refused. She fed him scraps from her own plate when there was nothing else. She boiled water to clean a wound on his leg no one else cared about. She talked to him in the quiet hours of the morning, when Ethan was passed out and the world still felt almost safe. Granite limped across the pasture with slow, painful steps, his bones aching with every move. But he always stopped near the house. He never wandered far, as if waiting, as if listening, to the shouts, the crashes, the silence. He knew. He always knew. Granite had a way of standing so still, it almost looked like he wasn't breathing. At night, when the porch light flickered and the wind carried distant sounds, Marta would sometimes see him through the kitchen window, motionless, facing the house, ears slightly tilted forward, watching. She didn't know why he stayed so close. He had acres to roam, old trails to follow, but he never strayed far. As if the fence line was more than wood. It was duty, memory. There were moments, small, strange moments, when Marta felt like Granite understood. Not in a fairy tale way, not like some magical creature, but in a deeper, more instinctive sense, like he could feel what she felt. Pain, fear, the waiting. One night, Ethan threw a bottle through the window. Marta ducked, glass cutting her arm. When she looked outside, Granite hadn't moved, but his tail was twitching and his hooves had shifted in the dirt. He was closer than before, just a few feet. Another night, The back door slammed so hard it echoed across the fields. Granite let out a low, guttural sound, almost like a growl. That was the first time Marta realized he wasn't just watching, he was guarding. Something inside him had stayed sharp, even if the world had dulled everything else. He saw what was coming, long before anyone else did, and the moment would come when standing still would no longer be enough. They called him useless, said he should have been put down years ago. But Granite stayed, through the storms, through the hunger, through the nights filled with screams no one else seemed to hear. He didn't run, he didn't forget, he waited, because even the most broken soul can still protect, even the most forgotten life can still rise. If you believe that no creature is too far gone to make a difference, then this story is for you. The Green Ranch sat on the edge of a forgotten road, where the mailbox leaned and the dust never settled. Once it was a proud place, fences painted, barns full, fields golden. Now it was tired, like the people who lived there. Marta Green was the kind of woman whose hands told stories, years of labor carved into every line. Her voice had grown soft, not by nature, but by necessity. Silence had become her armor. She'd been alone since James died, her husband of 34 years. He was the one who'd built this land with his bare hands, the one who'd trusted too deeply, even in the end. He believed their son would find his way back, that love could fix what drugs had shattered. But Ethan never came back. He stayed and got worse. At 28, Ethan lived in the room he'd grown up in, now littered with bottles, torn clothes, and broken things. His moods shifted like the wind, calm one minute, violent the next. Marta walked on eggshells, praying some days he wouldn't come home at all. No one visited, no one asked. Small towns have big silences. And then there was Granite, once James's favorite, now barely more than a shadow in the pasture. To Ethan he was a waste, a pile of bones burning through our money. To Marta, he was the last piece of her husband still alive. She fed him in secret, brushing his coat when she could, whispering things she couldn't say to anyone else. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Marta stood on the porch, one hand resting on the rail, one eye on the field. Granite would always be there, watching, still, like he understood that something on this ranch was getting ready to break. To Ethan, Granite was nothing more than a stubborn weight dragging them down. "Why do you waste food on that thing?" he'd sneer, pointing toward the pasture. "He's not going to plow fields. He's not going to make us a dime. He should have been meat years ago." Marta never answered. She knew it wouldn't matter. Ethan hated the bull. Sometimes he'd walk out to the fence and throw rocks just to see if Granite would flinch. He never did. He just stood there, his eyes locked on Ethan, unblinking. "That thing gives me the creeps," Ethan once muttered. But it wasn't fear in his voice. It was something else, something unsure. As if deep down, a part of him sensed what Granite was. Not weak, not broken. Waiting. It was always in the quiet moments. Marta would sit on the porch steps with a threadbare blanket draped over her shoulders, a chipped mug of lukewarm tea in her hands. Her eyes would scan the horizon, not for beauty, but for threat. That's when she'd see him, Granite, standing just beyond the fence, framed by dusk or fog. His body was still, his breath visible in the cold, slow and steady, but his eyes never left the house. Sometimes she spoke to him. Not loudly, just soft thoughts out loud. "I don't think he's coming back sober tonight." Or, "Your leg looks a little better today, old boy." Granite would twitch an ear or shift his weight, and that was enough. It felt like someone was listening. The connection wasn't loud or warm. It was quiet, watchful, shared only in glances and in the way Granite leaned into her hand when she dared approach the fence. Inside the house, the tension simmered. Ethan grew more agitated by the day. He didn't just search for money now, he searched for someone to blame. Marta was always in his path. The insults grew sharper, the threats more real. He started locking doors at night, even inside the house. He stopped shaving. He started sweating through clean clothes. And Granite. Granite grew more alert. He paced the fence line more often. He stopped lying down. He waited near the back door longer than usual. And one night, when Marta fell to her knees in the hallway after Ethan shoved her aside, Granite bellowed, a long, deep sound that vibrated through the floorboards. Marta looked up through the window. Their eyes met. He had felt it, even from out there. There was a weight in the air now, like the world was holding its breath. Ethan's eyes changed. They stayed glassy longer, bloodshot, unblinking. He spoke less, but when he did, his words cut deeper. The silence between outbursts became more dangerous than the shouting. He watched Marta like she was hiding something, money, pills, secrets. He started asking where she went during the day, why she spent time by the fence, why the bull still lived. "You talk to that thing more than me," he spat one night. "Maybe I should put him down myself." Marta didn't answer. She couldn't. Granite stood closer to the house now. Every evening, one step nearer. His breath would fog the window panes. He didn't blink. One night, Ethan stood at the sink, twirling a steak knife in his fingers. Not using it, just holding it, watching the blade catch the light. Across the room, Marta's hands shook as she dried a dish. "Why are you nervous, Mom?" Ethan asked, his tone too calm. "Did you lie to me again?" She didn't respond. But outside, Granite let out a sharp huff, stomping the ground once. Marta heard it. So did Ethan. His eyes flicked toward the back door, and for the first time, he locked it. The night came heavy, wrapped in clouds and wind that pushed against the windows. Ethan hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken in hours. He paced like a shadow, back and forth, his hands clenched, jaw tight. Marta stayed in the corner of the kitchen, trying to make herself smaller than the flickering lamp above her. Without warning, he turned and slammed his fist into the table. The wooden legs buckled, and the plates rattled. "You think I'm stupid?" he shouted. "You've got it hidden somewhere. You're saving it for him, aren't you?" Marta froze. "Ethan, please." He pulled a drawer open with force. Knives scattered. He grabbed the biggest one, a heavy blade with a black handle. His grip was too tight. His eyes were no longer eyes, just fury and hunger. "I'm done asking." Marta backed toward the pantry. Her breath quickened. The room felt smaller now, suffocating. Outside, Granite paced. The bull's hooves struck the ground harder now, over and over, echoing like a distant drum. He snorted, his breath a white cloud under the moon, his muscles coiled with tension, his eyes locked on the back of the house. Ethan approached Marta slowly, the knife glinting. "I gave you every chance." She raised her hands, trembling. "You're my son." "No, I'm your mistake." And that's when Granite moved. With a sudden burst, the old bull threw himself against the gate. Wood cracked, splinters flew. A second push, and it gave. Granite was loose, and he was coming. The back door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Marta screamed. Ethan turned just in time to see a mass of black muscle and fury barreling through the kitchen like a storm made of flesh. Granite didn't hesitate. There was no warning, no pause. The bull struck Ethan full force, lifting him off the floor and slamming him into the far wall. The impact cracked the plaster, knocked frames from the shelves, and sent the knife spinning across the room. Ethan groaned, crumpling to the floor, gasping, dazed but not finished. Granite stood between him and Marta now, breathing heavily, each exhale a guttural snort. Blood trickled from an old wound reopened on his shoulder, but he didn't move. He waited. Ethan scrambled, crawling toward the fallen knife. "No!" Marta cried out, but it was too late. Ethan grabbed the blade and lunged, slashing blindly. The knife cut across Granite's flank. A deep gash opened, and the bull let out a roar that shook the windows. Blood sprayed across the wooden floor. Still, Granite didn't retreat. Instead, he turned and charged again. This time, there was no hesitation, no control. Only raw power and pain and something far stronger than either, protective rage. Granite struck Ethan head-on, launching him into the old sofa with such force that it collapsed beneath him. The knife slipped from his fingers. His breath left in a grunt. He didn't rise. Marta crawled across the floor, tears streaming, her hands reaching for the massive bull now dripping blood across the hardwood. Granite turned his head slowly to look at her, one eye cloudy, the other sharp and knowing. She placed her hand on his chest. "You came." Granite lowered his head, touching her shoulder gently. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, nothing moved, except a mother's chest, rising and falling in disbelief. The sirens broke the silence like a blade. Red and blue lights painted the dusty walls, casting strange shadows across the wreckage of the living room. Broken furniture, shattered glass, blood. And in the middle of it all, Granite still standing, still watching. Two deputies burst through the front door, weapons drawn. They froze at the scene. Marta, cradling her arm, looked up from where she sat on the floor beside Granite. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "He tried to kill me." Deputy Collins stepped forward, his voice low. "Ma'am, lower the weapon if you have one." "I don't," she said. "He took everything except him." Ethan was groaning, curled near the collapsed sofa. One deputy moved in, cuffing him without resistance. The knife was bagged, photos taken, statements gathered, but none of them could stop staring at Granite. The bull hadn't moved. He just stood over Marta like a soldier guarding his final post. Blood still trickled from his side. His legs trembled from exhaustion. When the chaos settled and Ethan was gone, Marta leaned into Granite and whispered, "Let's fix you up, old friend." She led him outside slowly, each step painful. The barn smelled of straw and thyme. She cleaned his wounds with warm water and old towels, her hands shaking. "You saved me," she said softly. "You were the only one who did." Granite didn't respond, but his eyes didn't leave hers. And for the first time in years, Marta didn't feel alone. Some say animals don't understand, that they don't feel loyalty, don't feel pain, don't feel love. But Marta would tell you otherwise. Because on a night when no one else heard her cries, Granite did. He didn't need words to know something was wrong. He didn't wait for permission to do what was right. He didn't care that he was old or wounded or forgotten. He acted. He saved her life. That night, something changed on the Green Ranch. Not just because Ethan was gone, but because Granite proved something more powerful than rage or fear. He proved that even the ones we cast aside, the ones we label as broken or useless, are still capable of extraordinary things. So if this story touched you, even just a little, take a second to breathe, to think, to remember someone you once judged too quickly, or someone who never gave up on you. And if you've made it this far, let me ask you something. Why do you think Granite did what he did? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And please, share this story with someone who still believes every life has a purpose. You never know who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay kind and stay watching.